Did you see shares of Disney? They're still hanging out around $105 and change. This is a company that was trading at $200 and change just 3 years ago. What's happened? I'll tell you what's happened. Over the last 3 years since Joe Biden came into being and everybody felt that, oh, we have to combat Trump, we have to combat the right, we have to go after conservatives. I mean, it's crept into pop culture in ways that nobody first ever anticipated or thought could quite happen, because, you know, sometimes you want a church and state there. You don't want to get inundated with politics when you're watching the Oscars or when you are going to the movie theater with your kids. And yet Disney has done this over and over and over again with all of its releases, which the majority have been total flops. I mean, one after another. They're losing. Nobody can lose $1 billion, right? Like Disney can. And so they had to bring in the old CEO, Bob Iger. You bring him back into town to see if he can fix things. Well, he hasn't been able to fix things, not much, not yet. And so there's an activist investor who tends to be more on the conservative side of things than on the liberal side of things. His name is Nelson Peltz, billionaire. He runs something called Trian Fund. And he's like, hang on, Disney, what's going on? I mean, you used to be everything and now you're like nothing. And hey, the whole media world is changing. You got to keep up with that from a streaming perspective. Remember, streaming is everything. It's why nobody needs a network anymore. Subscribe, like, hit the bell, share, all those things. But Nelson is like, okay, Disney, it shouldn't be this bad. So he issued today a 133-page report advising people at Disney how to get their act together. And some of those things, I mean, it seems kind of obvious, right? It's like, don't keep doubling down on these big sequels. Come up with some innovative stuff of your own. They don't have anything of their own. They keep going back to the prequels and the sequels because there's no creativity. How can there be creativity when you have to be in this little box that is so perfectly woke and perfectly PC? I mean, you can just take creativity and throw it out the window. So they got no creativity. He's like, hey, get away from these sequels. And by the way, try and do different things, like do a bunch of different things. Don't sock all your money into like this one movie and bet the whole kit and caboodle on that. Try and experiment. Do a bunch of different kinds of content. I'll tell you, over the weekend, my kids wanted to watch a movie. You know, we put up Apple TV because we stream. We kind of cut the cord, which I encourage you to do. That's a good money-saving thing to do. And we put it up, and we're looking, and I come across Disney. Yeah, is there any? Well, you know, I don't know Disney right now, but is there any old Disney or any Disney movie we want to see? And I'm like, it's all going to be Disney. And I thought about that, and this was before Nelson came out with his note today. And it's actually really interesting because Disney has come to represent sort of one thing only, and they don't really have enough diversity within their content to feed a lot of different audiences. And so Nelson is saying, hey, why don't you try and be more like Netflix? Netflix, which actually has a whole bunch of different stuff. And that's actually what we wound up doing. We went over to Netflix and watched a movie there. But there's diversity of content there, something that Disney doesn't have. And the content it does have is so woke, it's just nauseating. So he's on to something, but Disney doesn't like it. So much so that Bob Iger, he came out swinging today. He's got a spiffy new video. Check out this slick thing. It's like a political commercial. He's warning you, don't side with Nelson Peltz. Nelson wants to get some board seats. He's like, do not do it. Vote Disney. He's got a website and everything. Watch.
What's the harm of letting activist investor Nelson Peltz or Jay Rizzullo have a seat on Disney's board? The answer is simple. If they succeed, Disney could suffer the same fate as other great companies that Peltz has previously infiltrated, such as GE and DuPont. Nelson Peltz has a long history of attacking companies to the ultimate detriment of shareholder value. His quest also seems more about vanity than a belief in Disney. Why else would he sell 500,000 Disney shares over the past 6 months in the middle of his proxy fight? Plus, he has no media expertise and no experience in running a global entertainment company powered by creativity.
They said I have no media experience. I don't claim to have any.
And then there's Jay Rizzullo, a former Disney employee who was passed over for a promotion nearly a decade ago.
The point
he hasn't been...
is that, you know what? Maybe you don't need any media experience. Maybe this is, again, just a common sense thing. How hard can it be? Produce content that people actually want to watch, Disney. Get your politics out of the way, Disney. And start hiring actually diverse people, not just because they look diverse, but because they have diverse approaches and diverse mindsets. You see, this leftist extremism has canceled out actual diversity in the name of diversity, right? Okay, we got somebody who's Black, we got somebody who's Asian, we got somebody who's trans, blah, 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 blah. But we don't have anybody that thinks differently. Because if you dare to think like a conservative, off with their heads, right? That's the end of the story. So you have actually a bunch of carbon copy type of ideas and people that have no ability to be creative or be innovative, that are hindered and are scared and are stuck in their wokeism where they all think alike and they can't figure out why it is that the consumers are not responding to their content. So it's pretty simple, and it doesn't take a media expert. Nelson Peltz gets it. I get it. I guarantee you get it. I know Don Baca, he gets it. He hates Disney, I'm pretty sure. Right, Don? Yeah. One of our viewers here. Again, if you are not in the live chat, make sure you join us. I will be going to some of your comments momentarily. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, we have a wokeism kind of illness in America. It's hurting businesses, it's hurting politics, and it's hurting the American people themselves.